Good morning. Morning, MC. Good morning, Jess. Morning, Takeshi. Hope you guys had a great weekend. Rich, Fred, Maladay, how are you guys? Morning. There's still so many nice looking names out here. It's honestly, it's a little overwhelming, honestly. There's still so many nice looking setups. Just when you think the market's got to go sideways for a little bit, more names appear. I like EQT. You know, the only real problem with EQT is the group that it's in is not amazing. But really, this thing acts like a leader. That's the only reason this thing hasn't broken out of this consolidation yet, is simply because the group that it's in kind of sucks. That's the only problem. Otherwise, EQT, CRK looks pretty dang good. WMB. Let's look at MPC. Yeah, MPC is another one that looks pretty decent. But, you know, there's not a ton of these. Yeah, yeah. Nuclear's up quite a bit. Quantum names, I'm looking at IONQ up almost 4 points in pre-market. How do I keep my focus on just a few names? So when there are so many stocks that look really nice, I'll focus on the ones in the best groups first, and then I'll kind of trim my list even more by the ones that have the best fundamentals too. The reality is like if names are just going to be one day wonders, or potential for that because they don't really have fundamentals or they're not in a good group, then I don't really care for them. Right? I want names that are going to give me moves that give like last duration, for a few weeks. And the only way you're going to get that is if you focus on stocks and leading groups, good earnings and sales. That helps a lot. Yeah, UMAC is interesting. I mean, it kind of falls into this list of speculative names like PDYN. If there's any one of these, and what is UMAC? Is it like robotics or is it drones? I forget which one, but obviously Archer with a pretty big gap up overnight. No, Dave, I don't consider ever opening up my stops when market's in an uptrend. No, here's the reality. The best stocks in the world don't come back to their starting gate. It's like one time Dan Zanger said that, and then it made all the sense in the world. The best horses in the world don't go back to their starting gate. So the best stocks in the world keep going and keep going and keep going and keep going and keep going, and people chase them because they just don't pull back or they just don't stop going. Thank you. Yeah, I appreciate that. I'm excited too. Torqued up you too, man. Yeah, I appreciate it. Yeah, I'm excited for that conversation. That should be a good one. Yeah, coin was interesting, but then it obviously shook everybody out. And I had it at like 251. I got sells at like 256, 254, and 252. Like literally $1 above my average as this thing was falling. And then it's kind of making its way through there right now. There's a little bit of overhead supply, so I'm just going to be patient. Let it tighten up this right hand side and see if it'll create me a little flat pivot just under 266. I'm in no hurry to own it right now. But the whole group is actually starting to act a little bit better. It's not just coin or MSTR. Obviously, I'd probably say my favorite one as a cheapy miner would be Hut. I think Hut looks pretty dang good too. I'm like looking at this thing, and since the lows, right, all of the biggest volume bars are all accumulation. They're all the biggest volume bars are all green bars. So it's definitely interesting. UMAC is drone components. Yeah, Fortnite looks pretty good too. Yeah, I like Bros. I just didn't love the volatility there. This was a little much. What's my plan with IONQ? Nothing. Why would I have a plan with IONQ? This thing's allowed to go without me. Yeah, I'm not too concerned if IONQ goes without me. Guys, there are so many setups out here. Even if you like these cheaper names too, you've got something like APPS, ideally an inside day, a little pullback into the rising 20 again. I mentioned this one, a few weeks, not even a few weeks ago, but a few days ago as this thing was just kind of consolidating in here. And MVST was another one as a cheaper name. These things just continue to look well. And not only that, too, if you like names that are a bit more expensive, that kind of show you the narrative that the market's still bullish and in an uptrend, you've got these high type flags and like LPLA, you've got KLAC still acting really well. Nice little move back above the 200, finding support on the rising 20. LRCX, ASML, not ones that I would play. NRG just needs a little bit more digestion, still a little extended from the 50. CCJ, same deal, but looks really good. And obviously, pretty big gap up this morning. Not exactly sure what the news was here, but let me see. Exchange traded funds. Yeah, nothing really here. Chemical expects its share of Westinghouse Q2 to rise by roughly 170 million. Interesting. So this is just broken all-time high. So who knows? Don't know if the news is good enough for a viable gap up. FinViz, nice to have you guys here. Thanks for the message too about the video I made. I appreciate you guys. So recently, Mac, one of the things that I would tell you is that stocks have been having like this morning drive and then a morning retrace. And then they'll just kind of grind back intraday. So one of the things that I would tell you is you got two options, and don't be hesitant to buy, because if you're hesitant to buy, it means that you're just putting on too much size. But like if you have a clean level and you're only risking like 2 or 3% to low of day, like that 5-minute opening range break, just make sure you size right. If you have a 10% position and a 2%, 2.5% stop loss to low of day, you're not risking a ton. So the next option is you wait for the first 15 minutes to go by. So it's like you'll get that opening drive, you'll get that pullback, and then you can look off of rising 60-minute support, or you could still just kind of wait for that grind back and for that 5-minute opening range break. You got a couple options, but just make sure that you're focused on good stocks. Like I wouldn't tell you to ever focus on like a KLAC, an ASML, or an LRCX because they're slow, but this is kind of what you want to see. Like on Friday, I bought ARC, right? And it's the same thing. You get your move up, you get digestion, right? And then you get a breakout, right? So LPLA is no different, right? You get your move up, you get digestion. Now the real question is, do you get the breakout? KLAC, again, no different. ASML, no different. LRCX, no different. NRG, no different. Even Duolingo, no different. And it's like the same. This one's obviously needs a little bit more time above the 50, but it's kind of the same thing everywhere you look right now. It's like stocks are breaking out of these flags. Even Nvidia, it's just so strong. This thing really refuses to go sideways, right? It's just kind of in a channeling up. So it's just kind of the environment we're in. It's a really strong market. So yeah, I don't want to hesitate. Just make sure you size things right. Yeah, Shopify is awesome. I mentioned this one in the room on what was this, Friday. And I was like, keep your eyes on Shopify as well, because it hit my 107 alert, like right in here. And, I didn't take it because I didn't think the volume was all that special in the morning. But then obviously it just goes higher all day long. And then, I ended up buying ARC instead. But yes, 112.5 would be pretty nice. I get this question a lot. as if, if you have like a smaller account, should you do anything differently? Like, maybe trade more speculative names, maybe be a day trader, maybe this, maybe that. But the reality is I want you to, pull out a compounding calculator, even look at something like 30 or 40% per year for the next 20 years of your life. And you'll realize that you'll have done really well, even on a small $30,000 account. So it's like, get the idea of, doing something different. Like, again, I started as a day trader and now I swing trade, but it's because it's the most scalable way to trade and the way of trading that equals the least amount of stress. Everybody's just like, oh, well, I've got a small account. I'm going to get to $1 million first as a day trader. And then I'm going to snap my fingers. And then all of a sudden I'm going to become a swing trader and I'm going to start trading differently. It's like, no, what you're doing is you're actually style drifting, and you're going to make your learning curve that much more difficult, because being a swing trader is different and you're holding on to things for longer. You're sizing down, you're letting time pay you versus position sizing. So it's like, a lot of things you're doing differently, and it's not the way. You're oversizing positions for no real reason. Yeah, BAC, Carter, it falls into the group of names that I was mentioning. You got these like Goldman Sachs, these like IBKRs, IBKR, JP Morgan, Morgan Stanley. These all look the damn same. So BAC, it looks like twins to all these others. But I don't know why you would want to own a name that moves 1.8% per day. Way too slow. Would I ever trade LMND? Yeah, why not? I mean, I wouldn't right here. I don't see a clean setup. Like, even if this thing was, coming up the right-hand side, I need the chart to be clean on the right-hand side. Do I like CoreWeave? I mean, I don't really see what there's to like either. Let charts build out the right-hand side. I'm not saying I can't like it later, but, if you like it at 140, well, where the hell were you at 104? Or where were you at the technical breakout over all-time high over here for this little IPO high at $65? So where were you there? It's like, I don't like it up here with no consolidation, if that's what you're asking. There's just really embarrassment of riches out here. Yeah, I'm watching EQT. The only problem with EQT, and I kind of mentioned it earlier, is it's the group's not acting the best. That's the real problem. No, Palantir is not super extended at this point. It's actually getting tighter. So this thing moves, almost 6% per day, and we're only 3 times its average true range from the 50. It's not that bad. Hold on, let me check the room really quick. I got a bot that can tell me the exact ATR. Let's see. Palantir quote. Palantir. So Palantir is, whoops. Where the hell are we? Here we go. Yeah, only 3.04 times its ATR from the 50. Not bad at all. So it's not extended at all. The only thing with Palantir is maybe a little less volatility here would be nice, and a little bit more digestion. Let the 50 simple catch up. My thoughts on Chewy, it's been a monster. Probably, I mean, again, here's the real problem, right? Okay, so look at Chewy. How do you buy this here? Look at how I bought ARK, right? You see the move up. Do you see the sideways consolidation, right? And then I come in and I buy ARK, right? Do you see Chewy? Where the hell do you show up to buy this thing so that you can manage risk? That's the real problem. No, I have scans built. I mean, I use a bunch of scans. I use a ton of scans. I use scans through Thinkorswim. I use scans through FinViz. So I've got scans built all over the place, man. Any thoughts on MPC? I just looked at MPC Marathon. Nice little bull flag. CVI. Again, same deal. Bull flag. Dino. Below the 200, let it establish itself above. NRG is another one that looks pretty good. Still a little extended from the 50. And as for charts, I'm watching 16, about 30 charts at one time on my screens. I've got 4 right in front of me that I can execute on. I'm looking at futures markets, and then I'm looking at 20 charts on my other 2 monitors. And those are names that I just think might be actionable. Yeah, I've got a CLS on my watch list, but I think it's just a touch extended from the 50. I own this thing at $100, and I sold it too soon, man. Sucks. Oh, all right. Well, this is easy. The answer for me, and this isn't financial advice. The answer for me is if you own it from lower and you bought it like prior quarter and it's been working for you, there are times when you could do 2 things. You could look at implied volatility and see what the implied move is. And if it's just too big and it would bring you back to your average, I would trim half. But the answer normally for me is trim half, and then you can always rebuy it on a nice positive reaction. You can always add back as like an EP setup, and then you can use like a high volume close for ads on top of that as well. So you've got a couple ways you can add back on a positive reaction. The problem is if you don't sell any, and let's just say you're only up like $4 or $5 a share, and then it gaps down, you're kicking yourself. But if you sold half and it keeps going, I rationalize it like at least I still have half. If you sell half and then it dumps, then you'll be happy you sold half. So really it's like a win-win mentally for me. And then if it gaps up, you can buy an earnings gap up as a setup, or you can buy a high volume close as a setup. Yeah, Ollie's the leader in that space. Ollie is definitely the leader in the retail space for like cheap stocks or whatever. Not really cheap, but like cheap merchandise, cheap shopping, bargain shopping. Bargain shopping. That's the word. Yeah, IBIT looks good. Man, I'm tired. I need a coffee already. Yeah, IBIT looks pretty good. IBIT looks pretty dang good. Had this shakeout candle on Thursday. Friday looked like, it wasn't doing too much and then obviously gap up overnight. Hopefully Bitcoin slows down for a day. Yeah, bro's getting tight. I do prefer toast though. Bros is getting tight, but I prefer toast. And I already own toast, but meaning I would add back. But we'll see. If this thing can get going over Friday's highs, I might be interested. So how do I buy a choppy name like Ali? I mentioned this one actually in the room, and I said if you kind of look back at this guy's history, even really look at over the last few months, right? Look at how many times this thing has come into rising 60 SMA, and look at how many times it's bounced, right? So the real question is, how would you buy this? Well, just the other day when this thing was down, I was like, okay, this actually area is not a bad spot to look. And you would just be looking for a 620 setup on a 5-minute chart, against ascending moving averages, because all these dips are bought, right? On a name like Ali. It just sucks. This price action is terrible, but it is going higher. And it is finding support against the rising 200. So when you get a nasty little spill like that, that's the spot that I would use. And then you use that moving average as your guide. Yeah, I like buying reclaims of 200s. My thoughts on TMC, the metals company. Nice and tight against the rising 20 here. The thing that I don't dislike about this setup is if you were to buy it over prior day high on TMC, you could then use, it's a really, really tight stop. Yeah, Carter. Yeah, I have a playbook. I have a playbook of all the setups that I trade, and I'm really talking about all my setups throughout the entire day too. I'm live streaming very similar to how I'm doing here. So it's just answering questions. My thoughts on Root. Root looks pretty good. Nice to see the comeback on Root. Yeah, nice to see the comeback. This name has been such an absolute monster. Look at this thing. From $10 to 80. What a move. Big digestion, continuation. This thing has been pretty fantastic. Ideally it's got to clear, these little upper wicks here. See these few upper wicks and the super, super volatile earnings day. Ideally, we can clear that. Yeah. Yeah, it had good earnings. It did. It's been having good earnings. And then obviously you get this really big volatile earnings day, and you just take out highs. That could be good. But ideally, once you get there, a little inside day, and then you could look for it over that level. Be kind of how I would think about it. And if it doesn't happen, guys, there's so many names out here. Don't feel like you have to chase anything. Thoughts on GH base? Nice comeback is what I think. Looks great. Awesome, awesome comeback. Yeah, this one was one I was already watching, but we'll see. Bigger the base, the bigger its space. Yeah, NVIDIA looks like it's setting up for an all-time high breakout. Yeah. Ideally, this thing would set a better sideways pivot. So, like, if you guys remember AVGO, I thought this thing looked pretty dang good right in here. Right? You had your move up, and then, we just talked about it, sideways consolidation. And there it was. 236 was the level, and then 236, you get a 30-point move. Kind of a nasty little pullback on earnings, but it doesn't seem to be affecting NVIDIA. Ideally, this thing can come down to the 20 simple, and then I could look for it, for a little, an entry right at around that level. We'll see. Yeah, I trade inside days. Yeah, well, I want to buy this. It's coming out over that inside day, but yeah. Double inside days. It's not that double inside days work better. The reason they work better is because it allows the moving average to catch up even more. I would believe that that's probably why it works better. I don't know that there's like any other reason I could think of that it would work better. No, I don't think about, we're not really having a large gap up day here, right? It's like, we've got a 0.14% up day. That's it. You've got a 0.14% up day for the ES and a 0.09% up day for the NQ. So we're not really having that. But if you mean like a really big up day, like a 1% opening plus on, the NASDAQ or the S&P 500, open one position at a time, right? Yeah, just in general. Yeah, I figured that's what you meant. Yeah, just open one position at a time, right? Like look for your clean setups in leading groups, take it. If it works, look for the next one and the next one and the next one, right? Don't just go piling. Here's the thing. It's like in general, before the uptrend has really, really even begun and kicked off, you should be in one of the few leading stocks already, right? Like a Netflix, for instance. And so you should already have found your way inside of a few good leading stocks. And then now you're just trying to add more, and so usually these gap ups will happen in an uptrend, and, you're just looking to get more of your money involved, really. When I talk about progressive exposure, am I talking about both your portfolio as a whole and entering a stock? Do you buy your whole position at once or size into it as it works? Yeah, okay. So when I'm looking at a stock, right, that I might want to buy, let's call it ARK, right, which I bought on Friday, right? So the way I did it was, I bought this 5904 breakout. And that was my entry, 5904. And then let's just say today and then tomorrow, they don't do too much, but they just grind a little bit higher. And then by Thursday, that would be day 5, we're up at, $66, right? Okay, now all of a sudden, on this ETF, I might be up 14%. What I'm going to do is I'm going now, depending on how stocks are moving, how this ETF is acting, how quickly it's gotten to that level. What I could do is I would trim something like a third to half. And then now I would just be continuing to trail these ascending moving averages, right? So like the ascending 10, the ascending 20, because at that point, the ascending 20 would be a little bit above my average. And so then I would be done with the trade. But in the meantime, I'm still looking for new merchandise to buy today because I'm still working behind traction in my other stocks, right? Like TMDX, Toast, Netflix, ARK. So it's like, okay, I've got traction on 3 old positions. And then now do I get some traction in ARK? Yes. So then I'm looking for more today just to see if I can gain some traction, and then looking for some more tomorrow if I continue to gain traction. And then as stocks move out of these little tight areas, I'm looking for these trims into strength, treat it like a business, get paid, and then continue to trail your ascending moving averages. And that's it. And just rinse and repeat, rinse and repeat, rinse and repeat. But ideally, I'm working to get myself fully invested. And if you're like early onto a cycle, right, you don't really want to sell your winners too quickly. Let them work, right? So ideally 5+ days, treat it like a business, sell half, trail your ascending moving averages. Yeah, HIMS looks okay. A little too volatile right now. It is holding on to that $51 level, but just a touch volatile still. Yep, BTSG looks great. This is on last night's watch list. Yeah, last Thursday it was breaking out of range, and I tried to buy it, and it didn't work. It failed right away. Why? Right? One, lack of volume, and Thursday, what else was going on? Could you tell me, Jay? What else was going on Thursday in the market? I'll let you think about it for a minute. What else was going on in the market on Thursday? Exactly. Right? You had the drama going on, and Tesla getting hit, and Amazon coming back down, and Apple closing at the lows, and all the stocks were just kind of getting beaten up on Thursday for whatever reason. And then even Palantir got absolutely smoked on Thursday. Big volume came in back through the 20. I mean, it was just, and you also had this lack of volume, right? What was the first thing I tweeted on Friday morning? Big volume coming into ARK on Friday, right? And you could see it, right? So look at like the first few minutes, right? And I literally tweet. So like, this is the volume on Thursday. Look at how low the volume is down here. And then Friday, when I tweeted this, look at the volume that came in even the first 10 minutes of the day. And then that's when I tweeted like, okay, holy shit, what is going on here? And then all of a sudden you're off to the races. So I was just buying the breakout, and there was huge relative volume right from the word go. So, that gets my attention. What are my thoughts on OLO? OLO looks fine. The problem with an OLO, it only trades 16 million bucks a day. That's not very thick. It's kind of a liquid, but looks good. I mean, I'm not going to hate on it. FTAI needs to establish itself above the 200. LAES isn't even really a real company, but I see the little flag. But it'll go if like QBTS, IONQ, Rigetti, and all those go nuts. But it's just total dog shit. OUST extended looks fine, but extended. But nice. Yeah, Gabo, nice one, just extended. It was like really nice in here. Whatever day this was, 5/28. Guidewire, yeah, I saw the earnings. I would just be patient there. This thing's got this high volume close. The level I'd be focused on is 253.98. Yeah, CCJ was also on the focus list. It's just not one that I would buy on this gap up. Nice to see, though. Yeah, Redfin, nice consolidation, but man, where's the momentum? Look at this thing on the weekly. Where's the momentum? Someone might go crazy owning this thing. No more than 4 times its average true range from the 50, Steven. So if a stock moves 4% per day, I don't want to buy it more than 16% above its 50 simple moving average. Very rare occasions you can, like if you're trading like a small cap maybe that is running. Otherwise, just be careful with stuff like that. I've talked about this in some of my interviews before. Yep, JPM, IBKR, MS, GS, BAC, they all look like twins. Yeah, this is nice. This looks like these other little, high type flags. This is what you're looking for. The real question now becomes, when you find a setup like this, when you find a setup like SITM, the next things you want to ask yourself is this stock have good earnings and sales, and is it in a top 40 group? Right? If both of those, things are met, then you're onto something nice. That's exactly what you want. If it's got good earnings and sales, that's the fuel for the rocket. That or some kind of catalyst. Yeah, team's starting to shape up a little bit better. Yeah, I'll give team some credit. I don't know that it's perfect just yet, but it looks pretty good. Over $65, that'll start to look a lot better. But it does look good. And, it's a Kathy Wood top holder. So I want to see it do well because I own ARC. So I've got some vested interest in watching all of Kathy's names rock. I'm Kathy's biggest fan. I owned HSAI. I owned HSAI like right around this area too. Yeah, I mean, it's not acting all that insane right now. I mean, it's just, it looks like building a little cup and a handle. It's got a bunch of supply over, once this thing gets going over 23, this thing's going to look a whole lot better. I don't know about buying the dip on Hood right now. Hood's still extended from the 50. Just let it tighten up. Some sideways action would be good. The more sideways, the better. And these things like 8 times its ATR from the 50. ON, man, it's not linear at all. Ugh. Yeah, I don't know. Nothing special yet. Nothing special. And again, it could be a pullback buy, but what are you using as your guide? Right? So it's like, I don't know. I don't really see the setup in this one just yet. All right, guys. I appreciate you guys all for being here. I will be back in 23 hours. I need to go get myself prepped for stream. And thank you guys all for being here and the awesome amount of questions. Thanks FinViz for showing up and showing support. I appreciate the message earlier today. Yeah, AS is nice too. Nice gap up on earnings. But I will see you guys bright and early tomorrow. Same time as always, 8:30 Eastern, 7:30 Central. Stock Maniac, thank you for being here, brother. And I will see you guys tomorrow. Thanks again, everybody.